Everyone's got a different story. We all came from somewhere. We all came from really different places in following the Lord. And some of our stories are dramatic and big and sudden, and some of them are a long stretch that don't seem as dramatic, but are still beautiful. So here's a little bit about my story. So I can't remember a time when I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe that Jesus was real, and I can't remember a time that I didn't know about God. I grew up going to church. My mother faithfully took us. From some of my very earliest memories are in churches, in a little Nazarene church just outside of Kansas City. And that was largely my family. We had families scattered around that we saw fairly frequently, but in a lot of ways the church was my family, and we loved those people. I'm so thankful for growing up, hearing the stories of God, hearing the stories of Jesus, and so those are woven into who I am, and deep in my memory are those stories and those truths, and I'm eternally grateful for that. At the same time, it's easy to grow up in that environment and not really own it, not really take it on and come alive to it. So I would say that almost all of my life I've been convinced that God is real, and that his gospel is true, and the good news of his kingdom coming is true, but I wasn't captivated. So this is the story about how I moved from convinced to captivated. And I think we all have to do that. We all have to move from being convinced that God is who he is. The Bible says even the demons believe who Jesus is, and they shudder. They know, they're convinced, they know it to be true, but they are not captivated and in love with him and who he is. And that's what we all have to do at some point. We have to move to being captivated by him, being drawn to him, being drawn to his character and his goodness, and wanting to be like him. My journey, my story is not a dramatic one. I didn't have no lights from the sky, didn't fall off any horses. It's just a story of a long journey of a boy growing and learning about God, and finally, way too late, coming to make it my own and coming to lay down everything to follow Jesus. For me, I think the moment I saw the biggest change, we were living in South Korea. My wife and I taught there for 2 years, and we were living there and just in kind of a one of many that we've been in, a wilderness place, and just seeking the Lord, and what he would have us do, what we were doing with our lives. And finally I just came to a point where I felt like, God, I've been asking you to do my things, my dreams, my desires, and I've not just laid everything down to you. And so it was really in that time when I began to learn what does it mean not to be a Christian, not to be a part of Christian culture and convinced that these things are true and study these truths, but what does it mean to look at who Jesus is, look at his character, and just dive in there. So I began to do that, began to just devour the Gospel of Matthew and the four Gospels, and not that the rest is not helpful and necessary, it is. But I just began there in the life and teaching and ministry of Jesus and the character of Jesus. And man, the more I began to do that, the more I began to see, oh my goodness, this man, this God is who I want to be like, who I want to follow. And he, as he calls us to love, as he is loved, he calls us to serve as he served. And that's what suddenly my heart was on fire, and that's what I wanted to become. That's who I wanted to be like. And I think that's what he calls us into. That's what the Father desires for us, to be in love with his character and take that on. So for me, that was that time. It was just a radical time of all of my desires and thoughts and hopes changing and shifting and becoming more like Him. And it was around that time that the Spirit really began to move in me and open the Scriptures in new ways. And like I said, I felt like I moved from that place. I felt like I moved from being convinced to being captivated and in love and on fire for this Jesus and this God. Shortly after that, Ashley and I baptized each other on a muddy beach up on the coast of Korea, and no one around us knew what was happening. We went out, walked out, baptized one another, and walked back, I feel, in new life, in a new spirit, in a way that we had just never been alive before. We'd always believed, always trusted the Lord, always believed all the things, right? But never before had I been that captivated by Him. And it's that desire, that love, that joy that is driving us to do the work that we're doing and to live life the way that we are. Suddenly, once you're captivated with Jesus, everything that had taste for you before becomes tasteless, right? The only thing you want is Him and His will, and you want to desire and enjoy and love the things that He does. And so it's been an amazing journey, and even a long, slow death sometimes of my own desires and thoughts. But it's been such a coming to life of His desires, His thoughts in me. That's been absolutely amazing and life-giving, and I'm so thankful for it. So I encourage you as you follow this Jesus. If you don't come alive at the thought of who He is, dig deeper. Keep going, keep following, keep asking Him to show Himself to you, and gaze at who He is, look through the Scriptures, look at who He is, His character, His beauty, how He interacts with people, study Him, and if you look at Him, you will know the Father, and ask to be like Him, and He'll make you new, He'll make you completely new. So I encourage you with that. I encourage you to join us on this journey of talking about and looking at and thinking about what does it mean to follow Jesus together. Bless you.